Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I thought we'll go through my top 3 issues when it comes to War Thunder going into 2022. Obviously I made the hopes video, but at the same time these are kind of connected to some of the hopes, but I wanted to kind of drill into the fact of these issues. At the same time, I think I'm going to do a Q&A next week on stream at some point, so if you have any questions for the Q&A, make sure to stick them in the comment section of this video so I can go through them live, and then I'll post it or publish it onto this YouTube channel so you can see my responses. At the same time as well, one of the things to also think about when it comes to issues is I've tried to focus on ones which have been long-standing, ones which have been problems for a decent amount of time, not just ones which have come out of the blue. One of the things that I see a lot when it comes to War Thunder is issues and problems that people talk about seem to change with the wind depending on what gets added to the game. So just like how the game gets modified constantly, people's opinions get constantly modified as well along with it. So let's get into what I think are the top issues of War Thunder in 2022. So overall, when we have a look at one of the systems in the game, which is grinding modifications, it's getting worse for the majority of vehicles, especially in aviation and also naval. Now, when we actually look at the modification costs, normally they're actually decreasing per specific individual modification, because as more modifications get added to a vehicle, it actually means that each modification at that row of it is cheaper, which is nice. It basically means that it's a little bit easier to stock grind. So at that end, it is getting slightly easier, but because they are adding more modifications which do more for a vehicle overall, once you unlock those modifications, you become more powerful than you were before. So when we look at stuff such as top tier aviation, for example, now that we have all aspect missiles on specific vehicles, now that we have more powerful missiles on specific vehicles, now that we have even stronger ground ordnance when it comes to certain vehicles going into ground realistic, now the stock grind is only worse for these vehicles. The more interesting ideas that you add to vehicles, which are going to be used in the meta for most nations, what ends up happening is it means that the stock experience is even worse for the individual. But once they get the vehicle fully modified, or once they get it close to being fully modified, it then gets better. And this is something that I found with so many different vehicles that I've been playing. One of the major issues with a lot of them is countermeasures. Just not having countermeasures is kind of a death sentence at top tier right now, especially with all the crazy missiles running around, and having not a lot of countermeasures is also a death sentence. Luckily they made it so most countermeasures, if not all, are rank 1 mods, so at least it's easy to get, but now you have to actually forego a lot of the mobility modifications for planes in order to focus on getting the missiles and also getting the countermeasures in order to be slightly, if not decently combat effective, to be able to deal with other forces. It doesn't feel nice to do, and it means that the vast majority of the grind of a vehicle, until you get it spaded, is not fun. It is just a chore. The perfect example in this was the Mirage 3C for me. It is a 10-3 aircraft, but when it is fully upgraded, it is absolutely magnificent. It gets 2 very powerful magic missiles. It also gets 1 very powerful IR-guided missile, which can catch players out all the time, and it's incredibly fun to play. The reason for this is because the missiles actually sometimes, if you get the play right on them, you can actually hit vehicles from a decent distance away, and also the flares won't stop the missiles if you don't turn off your afterburner. So the magics are insanely good. And also the larger missile that it has in the center, the IR-guided one, it has the longest, well, I think it has the longest range of any IR-guided missile. I might be wrong about that, but it seems to have it. And that means you can launch it from longer range and people don't see it coming, and it just annihilates them and they don't have time to flare. So overall, it's a fantastic vehicle when it's spaded, but it is absolutely awful when it's stock, and you are going up against machines which are either premiums or either are spaded, and you're just in a horrible position, and you have to really suffer to be able to get those vehicles into a position where they are useful and going forward. This is even worse in other game modes, by the way. It's just that not as many people play them, so therefore they're not known about. Naval is one of the biggest ones. In Naval, you don't even get a reduction in cost of parts at FBE. So in ground forces, when they did those big sweeping changes about reducing parts and FPE and RP cost, which, you know, they made a big deal about and everybody lauded them for, that never came to Naval. That never happened. You can go check for yourself. Go and have a look at battleships, go and have a look at heavy cruisers, light cruisers. They're still really high when it comes to their parts and FPE. At the same time as well, there are other key modifications specifically for stuff like heavy cruisers and battleships, such as the type of rounds that they have to use, which still are very high in modification cost and do not get reductions either. And the only thing that you really get from them is that from a rank 1 or 2 point of view on the modifications, they're normally there, so you can at least use them early on in your grind. But it takes longer to get parts and FPE because they're not reduced. So these are still problems that War Thunder has, and actually they addressed the naval problem last year and they just didn't do anything about it. So I'm kind of waiting for them to do it, hopefully after this event and hopefully after the festive period is over. Maybe then we'll get some clarification on what they're going to do. But at the moment, top tier aviation is in a pretty rough place when it comes to stock grinding vehicles, and top tier naval is in an even worse place because you get reduced rewards compared to aviation, and also at the same time nothing is lowered, so it is way harder to grind through than it is ground vehicles. One of the things that we do on the Twitch channel is we do profile server lookups, and the reason for this is just because it is quite nice to see people's progression when it comes to the game. It's nice to see how many hours they've put in, what they've decided to research, what they're interested in. It gives me kind of an inkling of what different individuals are interested in, and gives me a little bit of an overview of how people are doing or what they're looking for. Obviously, I can't really extrapolate anything from it because it's such a small data sample, but at the same time, it's really nice to do. And one thing I've come to realize is the profile is massively outdated as an idea. It's one of those things which has been basically the same since War Thunder's existence when it comes to the general layout of it. Obviously, they've changed the colors, but everything else is pretty much the same. And now, at this point in time, it doesn't even fit. And if you have a look at the picture on screen, you can see that in the medals tab, the Israelis being added to the game, it now doesn't actually fit on the screen. Now, it's got to a point where it's too wide for what's going on because too many nations have been added. Now, at the same time, maybe the fact is, when it comes to War Thunder in itself, maybe people just don't care enough about the profile to not notice, or maybe they are doing some kind of restructure of the profiles, so therefore they're not fixing it because they're going to change it anyway pretty soon. That's what I'm hoping. But if not, it would be nice to see an improved design. You know, it's nice to have the profile pictures. We still don't have any animated ones. This is something that even Crossout does, which is another one of Gaijin's games. They do animated profile pictures. And with the animated decorations that we now have in War Thunder, it would be nice to see some more animated stuff. We still don't have any type of prestige system, so I myself have been sat at level 100 for at least 5 or 6 years. It would be nice to have some kind of system like that to add some more progression to the game, for something else to work on while we're moving through. It would be nice to be able to customize statistics. It would be nice to have a search function in the service record, so if I wanted to have a look at a specific specific vehicle instead of having to troll through pages upon pages of stuff. That would be really nice. It would be nice to have a search function when it comes to decals, when it comes to achievements, when it comes to skins. Any of these things would be really nice to see, but unfortunately don't exist. So everything is just so hard to find, and the more stuff that they add to this, the harder it's going to be to find stuff. So for me, when I look at the service record, what I see is everything else in War Thunder being updated around it, where this stays the same. And that, to me, is a little bit of an issue. So what I would do in the future is I would intend to improve this once again, just like they've improved a bunch of the other parts of the game. And if they're not looking to improve it, at least fix the bar where the medals are, so every time I open the service record, it doesn't annoy me. The last one, which is one which I've seen over the last year, basically since Update New Power, this has been an issue, is the servers. And to be honest with you, if you have a look at War Thunder as a game, it has increased in popularity over and over and over again over the years, and now on weekends it regularly is above 100,000 players online, which is insane when you think about it, compared to where we used to be, where I remember on the American side of things, when I used to play on the US server, you know, we would have maybe 18,000 online back in the day. It's such a weird time when it comes to War Thunder, and has been a pleasure being part of the growth of it. One of the things to talk about, though, is there are still a lot of server issues in the game. The packet loss is still something which affects the game in a decent amount, and also high ping also affects the game quite a lot. So for me, it's something that has been creeping in ever so slightly over time, and it would be nice if something, well, was done about it, is probably the best way of putting it. It would be really nice to see something done. I don't know what they could do about it. Unfortunately, I'm not very knowledgeable about the whole servers and how generally they work, but to me it just seems either they're getting overloaded, or they just have some which they're renting which aren't very good, or something's just going on where something's going awry. Now, they have actually commented last year about the issues that they were having when it comes to the servers, but they talked about how they were going to continually try to fix them, and hopefully that goes into the new year as well, since the problems are still there and still affecting players pretty much every day. And yes, I understand that some players who do have dodgy internet connections might be having a little bit of an issue with servers going up and down. I am not one of those players. My internet connection is stable as all hell, and I stream pretty much every day, showing that my internet connection is stable as hell. It doesn't move when it comes to what is being transmitted, so that is not one of the issues I'm having. One of the issues I'm having is once I load in servers, sometimes they just don't vibe with me, is probably the best way of putting it. So it would be nice to see that fixed. War Thunder, once again, is one of the highest revenue-generating games on Steam in 2021, which is another video I'm going to make in the next week, just showing how War Thunder is not dying once again. It's been fun how the game now has not been dying for the last 8 or 9 years, even with people saying it constantly, it happening. It's nice to see it's been growing over and over and over again. But as it grows, more issues arise, and the server one is definitely, for me, the number one which I would like to see tackled. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Professor X 1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, BRFC 15, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, and then Kyle Kin, Bareen, Lafouche, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.